This is The Blockchain Show. The Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrency and distributed ledger technology.
Hello.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, sir. Very well. It's London o'clock again, so things are going well here.
Yes, fabulous. Good to have you back. Well, things are a little bit cloudy over here in Orlando, but something that's not cloudy is workchain.io. And so I'm going to hand you over to Ryan, who's going to tell you about himself and why we need to know more about workchain.io. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me in. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great. Thank you very much, Ryan and Workchain.io for being a sponsor of the show this month. We'll certainly publish details of you on our website, on all of our Twitter channels as well. And it'll be great to follow up on our thanks to our sponsor message that we put up on there with a real solid interview.
No, I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to sponsor quality content in this space. As you probably know, there's a significant amount of noise and pay to play, so it's hard to find, I would say, the gems out there. So it's great to be here.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And we've certainly seen a growing band of podcasts and also for the content we're pushing out there. So thank you, everybody, for downloading it. So without further ado, let's find out some more.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to maybe just start off with a quick background. My name is Ryan Fyfe. For the past 10 years, I've been kind of in and out of Silicon Valley. I founded a company that has now started off as Shift Planning, but now Humanity.com. It's become a market leader in employee scheduling. And, during my time at that company, I just stepped down as CEO there. I spent a lot of time thinking about the other problems sort of that plague the hourly workforce. And a big part of that comes to payroll. And I think what's really interesting now is that we're seeing a huge shift in the labor market from, salaried or contract workers to, more on demand. And then you couple that with sort of I would call it maybe like the millennial or, the tech that we're in, where everyone just kind of wants to have everything on demand. So in San Francisco and many other parts of the world, you can literally order everything from your app. You get it at your doorstep, hours or days later at best. And so payroll is one of these things that's been stuck, I would say, in a very archaic cycle, 2 weeks, 4 weeks at best. And so, at my time at Humanity, I started working with another company called WorkPulse that does automated time tracking. And so that's the founder of that company, Ivan Petrovic, is now my co-founder here. And it was sort of, our past experience that led us to thinking through, there must be a better way to do payroll and sort of help move payroll in line with the on-demand and real-time nature of the world today. And so that's really what WorkChain's all about. WorkChain is real-time payroll powered by the blockchain. We're built on Ethereum. We enable anyone to, set up their payroll using any ERC20 token. And so what's pretty cool about that is, and you're probably familiar with some of the rise of stable coins and sort of what's happening in the industry on that side. But we'll be able to support any ERC20 stable coin, basically allowing us to be global from day one and allowing, workers to get paid either the moment that they clock out or the moment the job's done, or, in a time-based fashion, for example, if it's salaried work.
Okay, that's really useful, because what I'm finding in the marketplace is that there are more role-based work packages out there. And we've certainly been discussing that on this show a lot, that the nature of work is changing so that you employ people for a certain period of time to do a certain portion of a project or a job so that you can get the right people or the people you can afford for that project. How do you cope with that compared to traditional payroll methods?
Sure. So I think one key differentiator, I agree with your statement. So I do agree that, on the whole, work is changing. For example, it's more than expected now. Maybe our parents had one job for their entire lives. People are now having, 5 or 10 jobs or probably more by the time our kids kind of go through the labor pool. So I think there are those huge shifts that are changing. One thing, though, is, WorkChain is not specifically trying to go after, let's call it maybe like the gig economy or changing how individuals are contracted for work, how their backgrounds or things like that are validated. We did explore with some of those ideas, and we have a product out now That was sort of like a proof of concept for us, show the world that we could deliver products, show the world that there's utility in blockchain, and that, we don't need to decentralize the entire world to get the benefits of the blockchain, which I think is sort of core to what we believe in. And so from that perspective, the core change that we're making is really just enabling employees to have instant access to the earnings that they've already had. And we think this is key for a number of things, especially if you think about kind of the predatory nature and how big the space is for payday lending, for example. A big part of that is just people needing access to their funds now. And when you look at sort of the labor pool that's within Uber or Lyft and sort of those companies in the world, a lot of these individuals are just working these extra hours as second or even third jobs because they really need those funds to be able to, pay for an unexpected expense. Maybe there's a trip offer they wanted to take advantage of, different things like that. And so that's kind of part of what we think is just providing financial freedom for the labor that's already been provided to the business. There's no real reason for a business to hold on to those funds for a month, for example, when you've signed a contract saying you'll get paid for them by the hour and you've delivered those hours. So that's kind of key to our mission itself.
Oh, fabulous. So how is the blockchain helping you, which couldn't be done with traditional methods?
So there's a few things that were, kind of like the why blockchain questions for us. A big one of them is sort of just the base. Our belief is that all payments are going to move to the blockchain anyways. And so that's sort of just like inherent with us getting there. And there's a number of benefits the blockchain offers when we just compare it to traditional fiat. So you've got kind of seamless cross-border payments. You've got, the reduction or elimination of middlemen. So you've got low cost, trustless transactions. And so there is kind of a nature of that. Like if I say I'm going to get paid for the job that I'm doing, I will get paid for the job that I'm doing because the smart contracts can almost act as an escrow in that case. But then the bigger parts for us are, the removal of transaction fees and the ability to actually make things truly real time. Even with slower and, even during like CryptoKitties times or things like that, when the Ethereum network gets a little bit bogged down, and we're doing a number of things to, work around that sort of with like side scaling. The reality still is that, the transactions on Ethereum, even during like a busy time, are still significantly cheaper than bank transactions, and they still happen in more real time. So I think that's kind of like the inherent nature of why we believe that payments should be done in cryptocurrencies. And then we're really excited to be partnering with some companies that are working on, the euro and US dollar stablecoins, because that sort of removes the volatility question, where that value can be transferred. Individuals have security. Well, both businesses and employees have security that value won't be, going up and down with the markets before and balancing their books or when they're needing to make expenses.
And how well does your system interface with traditional methods? Because I imagine corporations out there are going to have to use both methods to keep their workforce happy, shall we say?
Yeah, especially during the transition time. And so that's something that we've put a lot of thought into, and that's kind of core to, why blockchain, but maybe why a token, or why kind of who's involved in our ecosystem. And so one of the key parties that is involved in our ecosystem as kind of a stakeholder are, the employer, of course, but also the traditional workforce management apps, or we call them work validators. So these are the companies that are actually, guaranteeing that the work was done, or that the individual still employed, what their salary amounts are, what the deductions are, and things like that. We really just want to take care of the payments component. So from that regard, we are building that very closely into our ecosystem. And we've already done an end-to-end demo, actually using the API of my previous company, Humanity, where you can show the moment an individual clocks out, that work gets confirmed, and then that payment happens immediately on the blockchain. So it's pretty cool stuff. We want to build something, again, that has utility today. We're just about to push our app to the App Store for the first time, so third parties will be able to pick up and set this up on their own. And so did that answer kind of the question about how does it interface? Again, we're not trying to replace or displace these work validator apps, we view them as a stakeholder in the ecosystem, and we want to give them benefit for actually being on the platform itself.
Yeah, that covers it off quite well. So let's say I'm in an organization and I want to start a project and I've got full access to any resource I need. So I've found some developers from LinkedIn, let's say, and I've set up the project plan, I've got that. What process do I go through to use your solution to actually pay these developers?
Yeah, so in theory, what you'll have is basically, our wallet. So our application, our payroll app is actually, a traditional, like a standard ERC20 compatible wallet. So you'll have our wallet on the phone. You'll be able to enroll or invite an employee, set up that contract with them, which stipulates, in which token, at what amounts, using what work validator to define at who's guaranteeing the work from that perspective. And then the wallet is all smart contract driven, and it takes care of the rest for you afterwards. And so that I would say is like the holy grail. If we think about a world where everybody is using cryptocurrencies already, and so the balance that you have in your wallet is already there. What we have though right now, which is a big issue with cryptocurrency adoption in general, is you have a ton of friction at both kind of the fiat on-ramp and off-ramp. And so what we believe is that, if we can build sort of an exchange or help lower the barriers to get individuals into crypto, we can really be a part of driving widespread adoption. And so I think solving that at the business perspective, it is introducing one new business process, and we can talk a little bit more about why we think they'll be willing to introduce that or how we can reduce that. The thing that we're working really hard on now, though, is really on, once the individual's being paid in crypto, how can they then spend that in crypto in real time? Because it's still not, even if you get your ETH or whatnot, cents, you get that transaction or that value a few minutes later. But if you can't go and buy bread or milk with it at the store or pay for your gas, it doesn't really help you too much. And so that's where we're working with companies like Wyrix, and excited about sort of how the growth of the ecosystem in general is going to work kind of hand in hand with what we're doing. So we don't need to solve all of those problems.
Yeah, I guess what strikes me, I mean, I've worked in the self-employed kind of contract market the past few years over here in London. It's almost, the bread and milk and utility bills and stuff, I can kind of take care of that myself. I know on a reasonable frequency how much that's going to be on a monthly basis. I guess what would be really interesting if operating, say, like a limited company, that those kind of crypto funds might go towards, what would be really useful would be the kind of company fees, the insurance, company insurance, the supplies for the business, all those kind of services things would be a really useful initial help. I can then do some kind of crypto to fiat transfer over the course of the month, so that when my mortgage needs paying, I have enough by that time. But the kind of the business expenses would be a really useful and starting point. So I kind of don't have to worry about insurance or accountant fees or whatever else, which should be easier to, I guess, arrange a crypto transfer if we can influence those insurance organizations, accounting organizations, rather than your local corner shop or supermarket.
Yeah, and again, sort of core to our belief, and our company obviously won't do so well if this kind of baseline assumption is incorrect. But it's that in the future, cryptocurrencies will be widespread, and it'll be possible to just spend direct crypto without actually having to convert to fiat in any form. Because even behind cards like Wyrix or basically any other payment solution, they're essentially just acting as an exchange in the background. And collecting a small fee on that, and that's sort of part of their revenue model. And so that is definitely something that we have to deal with today. And so even in the situation where you're earning your funds every day, and maybe something that's interesting is we get into the debate at times, like, should people earn their funds every day? Are they responsible enough with their money every day? But can talk about that after if interesting. The thing is that even in our platform itself, in our wallet, if you're earning your funds every day, we could, our belief is that, through more flexible financial options, or by basically almost bringing the unbanked in some sense, or even the banked onto the blockchain and through the wallet, there's kind of a whole host of financial services that can just become a lot more convenient. So you can have maybe choose your own payday, or drip fund part of your paycheck every day into savings. There's a lot of cool projects that are working on ways to invest your crypto at rates that beat the bank. So or if you want to, quickly convert it into different different currencies, or, there's just a whole realm, I think, of new things that are going to be opened up based on using blockchain that just aren't possible today with the traditional fiat banking system.
Yeah, something it feels like there's a parallel to me with some of the, certainly in the UK, some of the challenger banks that are springing up. I'll use Starling Bank as an example, but Mondo and others are available. What I really like about the Starling Bank approach is they seem to be operating like a marketplace for services. Their mission in life is to try and be the best current account banking solution challenger bank. They're not necessarily interested in kind of mortgages or other financial services that traditional banks do kind of lump together and offer. But what Starling Bank are doing is offering that as a marketplace ecosystem approach. They're saying, well, you can go and invest your ISA savings over here, your pension fund over here. We can present that to you through our app if you wish us to, through our arrangements, through our ecosystem that we built up. But we'll stick to our core expertise in building a current account banking solution. We'll build a relationship with a pension services offerer and link them together, so you don't have to worry about it. Do you see that kind of direction happening with crypto, with making it more accessible, not having to let the consumer worry about where the best deal is, let the ecosystem take care of itself?
Yeah, I think that's right. And you touch on an interesting point, which is Europe is, I would say, doing and ahead of, the US or rest of the world in many places when it comes to some of these regulations, both with crypto itself as well as with banking. I know they just passed a law as well, significantly lowering sort of the barriers to get into, opening up and providing your own financial services. And I think when you start seeing stuff like that happen, absolutely a whole new world will open up, and the markets can decide versus, the government or a few. And that's sort of at the core of blockchain itself. That's why I started following blockchain, or getting sort of passionate about what Bitcoin or cryptocurrency could bring to the world. And I think that's sort of core to our mission as well at WorkChain, is we want to kind of share that with everyone else and open them up to these new opportunities. So one part of our platform actually will be a peer-to-peer lending component. So we talked, or I mentioned before, about the ability to basically get your funds the moment that you've earned it. And we know that not every business is going to sign up for our platform, not to start. And so we want to have an employee first angle that enables them to still get paid for that work before their business. And then we recoup it either from the business or from the employee afterwards when traditional payroll runs. And so you have these micro loans happening on, let's say 2 to 4 week timelines. And that's something that we want to make. We want to democratize that, give everyone the opportunity to be part of that, experience, which traditionally are things that are, again, only reserved for like the big banks or big lenders, et cetera.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of cloud computing when that first came out. And I dealt with a lot of organizations then. And their question was, what do I ask cloud providers? And the first question to ask them is, how do I get off this platform? And it sounds like you've got the same ethos here with, right, the first thing people are going to ask us is, how do I get my money out of this ecosystem into real hard cash I can actually use? So that's a good way to approach it. I like that.
I think we do. I think that does need to be answered, that question, because people's mindsets and habits are hard to change, right? And culture's hard to change. I do, I'd say the point around is looking at actually how do we also make it easier to just use that crypto natively, and maybe blending those two approaches so that we have an out, we have the off ramp kind of stuff when needed, so that it's reliable if you do need to and said, go and pay your mortgage or whatever that you can't do with crypto. But also, enabling more of those day-to-day services, financial or otherwise, making them or influencing them to be crypto native as well. I think is probably the key to all of this.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you touch on it as well. And we're very mindful of that. And for us, it's, we want to focus first on our core payment product. That's going to go to the App Store, later this week, early next. And for us, that's sort of like us reaching the first milestone where people can actually truly use the platform to pay, deliver on our promise of real-time payroll. And then we've got to solve to really get adoption going. Well, we need to solve that crypto off-ramp, or either ourselves or through partners. And so that'll sort of be the next core focus. So Wyrix, for example, will be in the US later this year. And so that's kind of an exciting possibility of, could they support natively the stable coin that we'll use for the US dollar, which is, for now, we've chosen True USD. We really think they're up to some fantastic work. And so that's an example of where, maybe you don't earn 100% of your salary on this either. That's another way to say it, or another way to look at it is maybe you get 10% of your salary on a real-time basis, and that's immediately loaded to your card, and your business still processes payroll the traditional way that it does, and just has that as kind of a line deduction at the end of it. And so you can kind of get the best of both worlds in that scenario, or have the ability to draw on demand from the company if and when you need it, versus, essentially saying like you have to get paid in real time, I guess isn't really the approach that we're taking either. And so I'm sure that either, if we do want to sign up businesses holistically onto the platform, then we'll definitely need to either provide that fiat off-ramp service ourselves, or be partnered with an exchange or companies like True USD that already have sort of a lot of that built-in capabilities.
Absolutely. If I can't put my slippers on and go down to the corner shop and get my can of baked beans easily, then yes, it's not worth doing the work. And I think that is the key, especially for contract work.
There's an image for you. Are they fluffy slippers, Ian? Are they like kind of pink fluffy ones?
No.
Do you go down in a robe as well to your corner shop for your baked beans, or just the slippers?
Just the slippers. It's easy enough to stick some pants or jeans on, shall we say, and pop down with my black slippers, which are monogrammed in gold, of course. Absolutely. Though there is apparently a story about doing a pub crawl in Savannah in bathrobes from a hotel, but that's a completely different story, and wasn't cryptocurrency at all. But one day it might be a possibility that you can just use your wallet. Though I did have an interesting experience the other day at a drive-through McDonald's in the middle of the countryside in Florida. And I told them all, now just pay with my watch. And she looked at me as if I was like crazy. But, yeah.
And that stuff was alien, right? The year or two ago, maybe more like 2 or 3 years ago. And a lot of this stuff that we're talking to Ryan about is alien to a lot of the world. But got to start somewhere, I guess. But you've got to make it the new norm, and make it easy. If it's easy to pay your gas bill, or your the local shop with your watch, then why can't we offer that same kind of simplicity and connectedness with crypto and blockchain based solutions?
That is very interesting, or that's sort of why there's lower adoption right now to mainstream, because it's primarily just being used as an investment tool. And so even at like the heart of Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin Core debate is like, is Bitcoin supposed to be for, everyday payments? And so I think that's where like stable coins have just kind of risen very quickly and solved that answer for us, at least. It's that for now, there is no cryptocurrency other than stable coins that will actually truly be useful or trusted by people. So I wouldn't say Tether was a great first example of what could be trusted, but it definitely proved the idea out for being able to move in and out of other altcoins into a stable currency for, traders, for example. And so now for payments every day, again, when you look at our payment products, and if I was to show my mom or someone that doesn't know anything about the blockchain at all, she wouldn't wouldn't know that there's actually blockchain behind it. She would just see in her wallet, XUSD, and be able to cash it out or load it to a card or whatnot and spend it without even knowing that there's crypto really behind it at all. And I think that'll be, just like with every new technology, we think kind of that's ease of use and lowering the barriers to entry like this will be fundamental to making it go mainstream. And so we want to be kind of at the core at that, where people will be able to earn crypto, again, not even really knowing that there's crypto or blockchain behind it, and then just go out and spend it the same way that they do on their debit or Visa card today.
And that's exactly what we were talking about last week, where we were saying that blockchain and the cryptocurrency should be transparent to the end user. The end user gets a much better experience. Things are happening quicker, it's cheaper, but they don't know why. And that's what people such as yourselves are doing, is providing this service so that people can focus on their core business process without having to worry about crypto and blockchain, etc., etc. So that's a good thing.
So Ryan, a quick question from me. So you mentioned earlier you got a new release, new wallet services coming out over the course of this week. Is that right? What do you like us to do about that? What are you asking us, our audience, the blockchain world at large? What can we do to help you?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mark. So we are definitely, or for release date yet, I guess it's all dependent on the approval times, but let's say within a couple of weeks should be live on both Android and the Apple Store. And the big ask I would have is that if anyone's interested in what they're hearing and would like to be, get involved early, we're looking for pilot companies and users to, join us and be sort of the first individuals that will get paid in real time using the blockchain. Anyone will be able to download our wallets, start using it as a general ERC20 wallet. It supports any ERC20 token. And you're also able to set up the payroll components on your own, but we'd really love the opportunity to work with you, help you in that experience, especially like we were talking about some of the friction with fiat on-ramp and off-ramp. These are things that we can help with right now. And some of the things that we're exploring also for early adopters, I mentioned the lending pool. And so one of the ideas is on the go-to-market, maybe before Wyrix or we've got the card set up, if there's individuals that are willing to essentially earn and then save a percentage of their income in our platform, they'll be treated with priority when it comes to that lending product. And we think that we'll be able to provide very attractive rates for people that are, we call it staking, essentially that extra income in the wallet for, let's say, a 6 to 12 month period. And so that if then the fiat off-ramp problem necessarily doesn't become so big, and you're going to get an attractive return on your savings there.
Cool. That's really good. Really good. And my brain's already starting to tick into gear to work out. Who do I know who'd be interested in this? Is your pitch? Is your market? Is it springing out of the Silicon Valley Center and working out from there? Are you trying to go global with this immediately? What's your ideal route to market?
Yeah, so our go-to-market is up in the air a little bit, mostly just dependent on how the ecosystem evolves kind of alongside us over the next few months. Because as we mentioned, it's either we're dependent on, let's say, a card provider like Wyrix, or we're going to be out trying to figure out how we can issue our own cards, which is its sort of own beast to tackle. But right now we are working on, I would call it early adopters. And so we're going to focus really on the crypto community itself. So other blockchain companies. One interesting trend is not just, naturally every employee is getting paid in their local currency, but a lot of projects now are using their own native coins, like Binance is doing with BNB, to pay their staff for a percentage or all of their salary as well. And so that's, again, something where we can be that tool that automates that process for them as a part of the go-to-market. And then the second part of our go-to-market is really centralized around partnerships. And so those are partnerships like with my previous company, humanity.com, where we want to bring these existing ecosystems of millions of users onto the platform, allow the work validator to become a key stakeholder on the platform. They'll get benefit and actually be able to earn an additional revenue source by providing that data, which feeds the real-time payroll, the validated data that we need to make payments on top of. And so that's the other part of it. And I would say the partnerships will happen in two formats. So one of them are the work validators. And, a lot of times we think about those as like, let's call it traditional time and attendance companies, things like that. But as the world moves now to on-demand, we would love to become a technology partner to some of these on-demand companies where the moment the gig is complete, that those funds can immediately be released using our platform. And so they don't need to build out that capability themselves.
And how do you secure those funds? I know that this is a question which people are going to ask, is how do you ensure that transaction happens and that the funds are there?
Yeah, so that's a key part of the let's call it work validator, or sort of our token economy, is work record providers need to stake our tokens on the ecosystem, and that's sort of their guarantee that the underlying records they're providing are trustworthy. And so I think that's from my decade working in this space, it's extremely rare that you would get an employee's time and attendance like clocked in, clocked out, and then have that be both manipulated either by the business or by a tool like ours. But the tokens, that's a key part of the token economy itself, to actually like validate or sort of guarantee the validity of the records. And then if there's things like I would say defaults on payments, for example, when it comes to the individual, if we're in the lending situation, then that's where there will be like a chargeback, or also the need for an individual to stake tokens if they're like borrowing in advance. And so we'll use that in advance. But it's, again, extremely unlikely that you would have an employee, let's say, lent money for a shift that they've already worked, and then the company not pay them back afterwards. These are just scenarios like, I don't know anyone that's had that happen to them, except for like maybe very extreme situations where a company is going out of business or things like that. But that's, again, where we can have all of these types of risk signals within the protocol itself, which kind of help govern and can reduce or eliminate that. So, if you're an employee on probation, maybe you're in the first 3 months of employment, maybe those opportunities aren't open to you yet. Or if you're a new company that's only been in business for a little while, don't have history on the platform, maybe you need to stake more. Or maybe if you're using the platform, then the smart contracts actually have to be pre-funded. So it's almost acting like an escrow between the employee and the employer at that point.
Gotcha. Fully understand. Excellent. So what keeps you awake at night regarding this new platform you're bringing to the market?
Ooh, great question. I would say, our biggest, we're a startup. We haven't done a traditional ICO. We were actually, seed funded or bootstrapped by the founding team, which is something that we're all proud of, but it also means we're very lean, and the crypto space is changing, incredibly quickly. And so that's sort of probably our biggest thing, is just trying to understand where the markets are going to be. Will there be an opportunity to ICO in the future? We're looking right now at more traditional funding routes. So sort of back to Silicon Valley to see if we can raise funding. So that's the biggest thing that we have right now. And then on the go-to-market, I think we've got a good start on that side. And I think the biggest thing will be, is the world ready for a product like this, kind of beyond the early adopters? And will businesses be willing to, introduce something like this? And how can we make that value prop something that will be engaging for both them, because we know it's already there from the employee perspective on that side. So
excellent. Okay, thank you. It's good to get an insight into how you're thinking and where the platform's going, and what keeps you up at night. Where do you see the future? Where how far in the future can you see? I know we've discussed people working more on portions of projects than actual traditional roles, as us and our parents know. But what do you foresee happening in the future?
it relates to like our core product, or maybe blockchain more broadly, or
more around your product and how that's going to change the face of how people work, shall we say?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're going to see is there's going to become a real expectation that your funds should be guaranteed in advance, as well as paid out in real time, whatever that kind of smallest increment is of labor. And there's a social benefit, I think, to it on one side, but I think there's a trust benefit, and then there's just going to be an expectation that everything we do, just the same way we don't want to wait for more than a few minutes for an Uber, we're not going to want to wait a couple of weeks to get paid. And there's going to become they'll be opened up a whole new world of kind of financial services and more democratization of it, like we talked about, where opportunities now that have been reserved for the elite or for the big banks, etc., will now become democratized, and we'll be able to let the markets decide. And I think the blockchain will play a key part of that, again, from the kind of trustless environment and the ability to truly let the market decide and have true transparency about what is actually happening. So that's all stuff that I'm super excited about, and that's what again brought me into cryptocurrency in the first place. Well, I guess, and also why blockchain or Bitcoin and kind of blockchain started in the first place as well, out of the financial crisis. So yeah, super excited to be in this space. It's been fun and fascinating actually to watch it evolve. The one thing that's, I'd say hardest for me, or I feel kind of like an outsider maybe coming into it in, 2017, 2018, is just trying to understand the actual like marketing, as it's a lot more community driven. It's a lot more hype driven. It's a lot more pay to play. It's a lot more about, white papers than it is actually about product execution. And so from that perspective, I've had to kind of rethink or reteach myself a lot of things, but also now in the last year, the market kind of, I think, is headed in a much more traditional fashion anyways. But it definitely didn't start out that way. So
yes, I agree. From what I've been reading, there are more companies out there actually using blockchain. They've done their initial assessments of blockchain, they've done their pilot studies, and now they're working out how they can implement it. And I think that the investors are getting a little more savvy. Just because you've got blockchain in your title, or you say you use it, they're actually questioning more whether you need to use it, and is it something worth investing in, and is it going to survive the next few years? Because I think that the boom hasn't even started yet for the use of blockchain.
I think it's just starting, isn't it? I think we've gone beyond we're almost coming out of that trough of disillusionment now that we went through the hype cycle like last year. I think the first six to 9 months of this year, the value of cryptos have dived a bit, and therefore maybe the focus has left it, and the actual, I guess, technology solutions have been worked on in that time, whilst the hype has gone away. Actually, people can get down and get working on stuff, and not just deal with the hype and keep checking their wallet balances on an hourly basis. I personally have seen two organisations that I've worked with in the past couple of years actually doing investigations, but active investigations into the probable utilisation of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies for their daily work. And when you're looking at organisations like UK government organisations getting into it, then it's kind of people are taking it seriously. People are starting to piece the puzzle together to say, yeah, this technology has a role to play. It might not be the silver bullet for everything, but it's definitely one of my many regular bullets that I can put together to build out my approach to the future. So it's definitely happening out there.
Yeah, I think one. Again, I agree with that. I think it's a tool. It's not a silver bullet for every problem, and I think that's where kind of the ICO madness or craziness that we saw in the last couple of years is just super fascinating to watch. As there's clearly a lot of people that are frustrated or not trusting, sort of, let's say, the conventional tools that are out there, or the actors. But the other thing is not not everything needs to be decentralized, or it's not to say that every tool that is out there today is actually bad. I don't know a lot of people that don't trust, certain tools that they use on a day-to-day basis when it comes to, let's say, like net functionality, or is a dispute on Upwork going to be solved in an amicable, like in a fair matter, for example, for the 101, blockchain projects that are trying to solve that portion of like the freelance labor market. I just don't see that. I use Upwork on a daily basis, and I just don't see that. But it's fascinating to watch, hundreds of millions of dollars pour into these projects that, to be honest, I just don't see how they could ever make it to market, because they almost have to have everything go right to be able to provide any sort of utility. So we've taken, I would say, a more narrow approach to trying to solve, one specific problem where we think the blockchain can be a very powerful tool, and build product first versus, white paper and build later. And so hopefully that resonates with the market. We're starting to see sort of, more traditional investors pay attention, which I think is the right thing, and where the market's headed overall. But you guys are speaking with obviously a ton of, cool projects and stuff on the show. And also involved in this space. Would love to kind of get your take. There's a lot of people predicting that the markets where we've kind of troughed out now, the bottom has been set, but we'll come roaring back maybe later this year. We'd love to see sort of, where do you see things headed?
Yeah, I think we are talking to some really interesting people, and I think we have. It feels like we've gone through it, or we're going through that trough. We're the bottom, I think, has been passed. We're starting to see things that could, are genuinely useful. I think it's almost been good. As I said a minute ago, it's almost been good that the focus and the hype has died down a bit, because it lets people crack on and build the useful things. And we're starting to see that come to fruition. Yeah, there's some companies out there who were lucky in their ICO rounds, and that little period of time. There were some that were smart about it. They didn't fanfare too much, didn't blow out of proportion, made a useful investment through an ICO, and then got their heads down and used that and demonstrated whether they're using that. So those are the ones that interest me, and alongside the more traditional kind of seed funding model that are working hard, like you guys, working at it. You've got skin in the game, right? It's you believe in it. You're putting your own funding towards it, and you want to get something out of it. So yeah, the ones that work hard will probably be fine, and come out with some useful solutions to people's everyday problems. And until some of those will come out, and people will be encouraged to use them. If it solves a problem in my day-to-day life, I'll probably use it. Like maybe they're having the wearable technology, paying for something wasn't a problem I was aware I had, but it definitely makes my life easier, and that's that's where we'll see some of those killer applications.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Mark. That a lot of organisations these days are looking at blockchain, and we've spoken over the last few years to a lot of organisations, and we've been watching them grow. But again, we're living in a society now where you can't predict what's going to go viral, what people are going to find out about. And things like Kitty Coin and things which have been created as a joke are actually doing a lot better than some things which people have invested a lot of time into. And I think what you just said is very valid, that it's going to be those applications which save people efforts, make things easier or cheaper, that will come out the other side and be those real strong solutions which people use. But again, talking today, I know a great supermarket chain here in Florida, and my girlfriend can swipe her Android phone and pay for stuff, but they still don't take Apple Pay because of that update cycle for their point of sale equipment, that they can't afford to upgrade all of their systems at the moment to include this. And I think that cycle might be something else for the blockchain and cryptocurrencies when they do become more and more mainstream, that they are going to be lagging behind in the public use, simply because upgrade cycles, etc., for traditional hardware. So there we go on that.
No, there's definitely a lot of truth to that. One of our team members actually has spent kind of the last 5 years building an education software tool, and so they're dealing like annual upgrade cycles at best for schools. That's not something that I dealt with directly with my last company, but it is very much true. Especially, we started and were predominantly focused on being best at employee scheduling, but right next to the schedule, you have time and attendance. And we always did time and attendance as software. So the big friction point always there was, companies have spent a lot of money putting in, hardware time clocks, for example, or maybe their point of sale system has a time clock built into it. And it's, a 5-year-old microsystem, but they've spent, hundreds of thousands putting these things in. So it is a very real thing that the upgrade cycles will delay this stuff. But if, I guess SaaS, both where I believe SaaS was and where kind of the blockchain goes, it's definitely the inevitable future. And there's enough of a market now, we believe already, or I think SaaS is already now like widely accepted, for example. And so, and then even, where we are, blockchain, I wouldn't even say is like the barrier to entry for a business to accept blockchain. It's more businesses to go mobile, is the bigger thing. So,
yeah. And I think the ultimate thing would be when their blockchain is being used to assist the mission to Mars, which NASA are doing. So if anybody from NASA is listening and you know about blockchain and what you're using, then please get in touch and we'd love to do an interview with you. We might be able to do it in person even. But there we go. So Ryan, thank you. If people want to find out more, they can go to workchain.io, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all of your favorite app stores. When should people be looking at the App Store for your application, Ryan?
Over the next 2 weeks. And if you're following any of our channels, thank you for the support. And yeah, we'll definitely be posting them there. So it was a real pleasure to be on the show. It was great to connect with both of you.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sponsoring us. And really, best of luck. We'll be watching you with interest.
Thanks so much, Mark. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. And thank you, everybody out there, for downloading. Please tell your friends. Please get them to subscribe to the show. And today's Twitter phrase is, I need to get paid. So if you listen this far, then please Twitter, I need to get paid. And we will announce who did that first next week. So from me, Mark and Ryan, thank you very much. Good to speak to you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
To learn more, visit theblockchainshow.com.